Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. You all know that at this point. Come on, you guys know who I am. I've been doing this for 200 and something episodes already. Please, thank you, all of you, for being here. I appreciate everything that you guys have done. I am eternally grateful. And if you guys were not out there liking and subscribing and sharing and sending the hundreds of DMs that you are sending me, I wouldn't be able to sit here and do what I do, which is bring you fantastic guests like we have today. I think this guy is going to shed some interesting light on some topics that you may have heard of before, but if not, listen up because it's an interesting take on things, and I'm really excited to bring it to you today. Before we do that, you guys all know what we have to do. We got to pay a couple of bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Mm, man, that's good stuff. Man, it's hot. I just fired it up in between interviews today. Awesome stuff right there. And you guys all know what it is. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up. Check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of joe. It's a mean bean. They do a fantastic job, and they do all the right things for all the right reasons. They support veterans, which you guys all know is really important to us here at Power Man, and so we support them. Freedom Hill Coffee. Check them out at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Let me get one more sip so I can keep up with this guy sitting across from me. Mm, man, good stuff. All right. I will be drinking that through the entire episode so that I can keep up. Because, I'm getting old, man. I'm getting a little long in the tooth, especially for guys like this who show up with all this energy, source energy, maybe. But here we go. Please welcome to the show author and mystical comedian Justin L. Shaw. Justin, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you? Well, happy to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If I was any better, I'd be twins. Thanks for asking. You have some really cool ideas here. I've had a chance to, dive into the book. I cannot wait to hear about all this stuff. And before I start asking you a whole bunch of specific questions, tell my audience, man, who is Justin L. Shaw? What are you about and why are you here today, brother?
Well, I am, like I said, I'm a mystical comedian and an author. I like to make up all kinds of names, mystical comedian. I'm a doctor of divinity. I'm a sorcerer. They're all kind of made up things, but I am here to spread the word, I suppose, of my new book. And it's a new system of healing I created um, through all my kind of tough background and everything. I've been through a lot, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit. But it's a very exciting and very cool. And how it works is here in America, we have kind of this system. I consider it kind of a sick care system where we kind of focus on the symptoms. We're not really concerned with the actual deep problem that's causing all these symptoms. If you have depression, you should go speak to a therapist. If you have anxiety, you should take pills. If you have alcohol problems, you go to this meeting. If you have drug problems, you go to that meeting. Everything is separated. And what I realized through my journey is that there is one core issue to all of these things, and that is spiritual bankruptcy. And this system I created through my all my healing. I've just been constantly looking for healing my entire life. I'm a seeker, I'm a searcher, and I've found my own kind of thing and borrowed from so many aspects of everything I've been through. And that's what makes this so exciting is I take the best aspects of everything and kind of leave the stuff I didn't vibe with very much. But it is called sorcery, and I'm excited to create a world of sorcerers. And that's not, there's no, cauldrons or eye of newt required in this kind of sorcery. You can leave your hooded roads and magic wands in the closet for the, Harry Potter marathon. It's not that kind of sorcery. I spell it with a U because we are using source energy to create a thriving, healing, better life. And if you're not familiar with source energy, it has been around since before the beginning of time. There's many, many names for it, and different cultures, religions, and even science has a name for it. Dark matter, everything. There is a name for this energy, and it surrounds us. And explaining source energy to people is a bit like explaining the concept of water to a fish. Okay. So if you go to a fish and you say, well, if you try to explain what water is, it's going to struggle understanding. It's like, well, it surrounds you. without the water, you wouldn't be alive. Don't you realize what you're swimming in? And fish would have no idea what you're talking about. So it is this energy, this force field that is around us that there's a lot of pop culture in the book. I have a lot of fun and humor with it because, healing and it doesn't have to be serious all the time. And, source is the force. Obi-Wan explains it perfectly. It is a living field of energy created by all living things that surrounds us, binds us, and surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. And this field of information can be tapped into for anything you can possibly want. And it's through my experiences with it, which I have, several. One, the first one is the most exciting one that we can get into, but tapping into this energy changes everything. It makes you realize that most of us, and especially for myself, I was on airplane mode my entire life. You turn on airplane mode, and then it blocks all the signals and messages from coming in. And I think we can all agree a phone perpetually on airplane mode is not living up to its potential. And that is what I realized the vast, vast majority of humans are on airplane mode. And this is to help and assist people getting off airplane mode. That's what this book is about.
Okay, so source energy, you compare it to the force. I get the comparison you're making. So I mean, I've already got the image going, of this energy that sort of surrounds you, interacts with all living things. Got that. The spiritual bankruptcy you mentioned. Can you give me a quick little definition of that while we're moving forward? Because you said that was one of the biggest issues of of the world right now is that we're all suffering from that spiritual bankruptcy. That means we're not
Mhm.
plugging in, or we're not understanding, or we don't have it.
Yeah. So many of us are have been suffering our whole lives and we don't even know we're suffering until we start to heal. And then it's like, oh wow, I've been suffering my entire life. Someone like myself, I came from a very neglectful childhood emotionally. I had all the physical things I want. I was not, like I didn't starve or anything. It was nothing like that. But emotionally, I grew up in an emotional vacuum. I like to say it was like Fight Club around my house. It was first rule is you don't talk about your feelings. And the second rule is you don't talk about your feelings. Like it was that kind of atmosphere where it just anything that anyone considered the slightest bit vulnerable was not discussed. I was not told to, I was not given a direction. I was not told to stay away from certain people. We didn't talk about drugs. We didn't talk about sex. We didn't talk about feelings. The word love was not said in my home. Both of my parents were they divorced when I was in middle school, but regardless, even if they stayed together, they're both, emotional enigmas. So, when you don't tell a child that they're loved, valued, and safe, they're going to look for the world for love, validation, and safety. And the world is always going to tell them that they are unloved, unsafe, and unvaluable losers. And that's what happened with me. So, that caused a lot of rambunctious behavior. I've spent far too many nights in jails, rehabs, halfway houses, and even park benches like especially in my 20s. That was really nasty. That was a nasty nasty time period of my life. But you know, and it was spiritual bankruptcy that really was what there was a spiritual malady that was my problem. And Western medicine doesn't understand chronic disease. Chronic disease is caused by spiritual bankruptcy and a spiritual malady. If you suffer from anything chronic, Western medicine just doesn't get a grasp on it. Now, it's not to talk bad about doctors because if acute, we have a real good hold on acute injuries. If I fall off a roof and there is a bone sticking through my arm, don't send me to an acupuncturist. A chiropractor isn't going to do what I need. So, but once the doctor sets the bone and does his thing, does the surgery, sets the bone, the body is what heals itself. Now, the problem with chronic disease is that we don't know how to set the emotional bone, right? So, like the body will heal itself, but what we don't know and don't have a grasp on is how to set the emotional, spiritual bone to let the body, heal itself. And that is what this is all about. That it is about curing that spiritual bankruptcy. It is about setting the emotional, spiritual bone so the body has a chance to heal itself. The body, brain, the whole mind, everything. It has a chance to heal itself. And that's what this is about.
I like that, setting the emotional, broken bone like that. It's very visual. It
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
works with what the point you're trying to make. So, all right, you're a kid, you're growing up in this family, no emotion, nobody talks about emotion, just like Fight Club. Totally get it. The how does somebody like that, who is raised with literally no emotion, somehow get tapped into source energy, which is like the awakening of all of it and full knowledge of, you know what I mean, of the whole thing. What transpired in your life to make you go from where you were to where you are?
Yeah, great question. So the depths of, I think, there's hellish experience on Earth. Let's forget about the afterlife. There's plenty of hellish experiences here on Earth, and I had to go through several things in adulthood. I've had years of sobriety. In my 30s, I kind of went the Christian route and with AA and Christian and I have some issues with it. It's good and bad. Every sorcerer knows that the world is a world of gray, and there are, very helpful things to Christianity and AA, and there's some not so helpful things. So I did that for a while, and that just really wasn't working. And I went through a time where my mother was passing, and I became, it was that's hard enough to see your mother kind of go through the experience of dementia and cancer eating away their body, and she just, turned into a skeleton and couldn't remember it. And it was very traumatic on itself. But what made it horribly traumatic is this whole process, especially in her last couple of weeks, where I had been programmed to believe by my Christian religion that because she didn't go to church and she wasn't a Christian, she was going to hell. And this just absolutely spun me out. I mean, instead of being like the shepherd into the afterlife that I would be now and being excited and just being, Mom, you're going to be out of pain. This is going to be amazing. I was just riddled with fear the whole time. And so, after going through that and then, I had a sister die, I had a, close childhood friend die. I got attacked in the face by a Alaskan Malamute dog at a drug dealer's house. I got and then I had this instance where I met a woman, and we were, I got her pregnant very quickly, so I asked her to marry me. And then, this is someone with her own spiritual malady, and she just kind of flipped out and cut off the marriage. And we had a son together. We had an infant son. And so she cut out and just didn't want to get married, and then moved across the country, and then just cut me out of their life. Like, just stopped answering emails, changed the phone number, and moved and gone. So,
Ouch.
so yeah, these are the things that have brought me to my knees, per se, that just really brought me down. And in this time period, this is when I just, the whole Christian thing, I was very angry at it because I started realizing and started asking questions about, is this really true? Is this the, I don't, this isn't vibing with me. I don't think a lot of this stuff is accurate. And, there's a lot of good stuff, but there's some bullshit too. So I kind of went through this phase where I started asking myself, and I started meditating more. I started becoming more kind of, the shamanistic approach to things and energy healing and all these things. And I had this epiphany is the best word for it. I was doing a lot of shadow work, which is in my book, as well as meditation. And one day after the gym, I was just doing some stretching, and out of nowhere, I've had panic attacks my entire life. I had a bliss attack. There's no other explanation. There's no other way to explain this. It was a bliss attack. It's like if you replaced panic with love. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this started happening. It was 3 hours. It was 3 hours. It was like the best drug I've ever had, and there was no come down afterwards. It was fantastic. But during this time period, I'm in this extremely elevated state, and I'm getting truths and downloads about, like, both the direction of my life, how society is screwing everything up, realities of kind of the illusionary nature to things, and how there is no end. There is no end. We are infinite beings, and all these things started getting downloaded into my soul. And I knew them to be truths because of how I was feeling in that moment. So this is an experience that I want every human to have, because once you're off airplane mode, it never can get turned back on. You can try to avoid it, like I did for a little bit. This whole thing happened, and I was still kind of struggling with drugs and alcohol a little bit. And it wasn't until like I really started being like, okay, because I couldn't turn airplane mode back on. So the drugs and alcohol were working. Nothing. I realized I had to take a step of faith. And when you cross the river of change, there is a strong undercurrent of discomfort, and I had to go through that. And and to be on the other side of that bank is amazing.
So a bliss attack. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't sound that bad, to be honest with you. I mean, by definition, I'm like, I don't think I'd mind that. But was there something that brought this on? I mean, you said it just came out of nowhere. I mean, there wasn't a circumstance that brought it to you, or maybe all the work you were doing that prepared you to receive that, or anything. It just literally came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it did. But I was doing a lot of work at the time, and letting go a lot of these, meditating. First of all, we can't Source cannot talk to you. There's two types of focus, right? There's divergent focus and convergent focus. And convergent is what we're in most of the day. And most people are just constantly in a convergent focus. They go from focusing on the gym, focusing on family, focus on TV, go to bed. So you're constantly in a convergent focus. The meditation allows you to make a divergent focus, which is a broad focus on everything. And that
Mm.
is when Source can actually talk to you. Because if you're constantly converged on your focus, it can't talk to you. There's nothing there because you're busy. Like I'm busy. Like once you stop and meditate and start to make that divergent focus, now it's like, oh, okay, you've got some time. We can talk. And
Yeah.
believe me, you want to talk to it. And it was also kind of the shadow work I was doing and releasing false beliefs. That was a big part of it. I realized that, religion for me was what was standing in the way of a true religious experience. It's quite paradoxical. So just getting out of that whole mindset of this programmed, like it just wasn't, Jesus wants peers, not followers necessary. I don't think he was he was trying to guide people away from religion, not create a new one. I think Jesus is amazing. I love Jesus. Big, big, big fan. But this Christianity thing, I realized letting go of it and letting and kind of it was part of my shadow and these beliefs that weren't necessarily accurate. That's what letting go, and all of a sudden, like real truths came in. So yeah, that was part of it, the shadow work for sure.
Yeah, and that's what made me think of that. Is that I'm a little familiar with shadow work and energy healing and things like that. And it seems like when you start doing that work, you open yourself up to receive these things that are just waiting for you to receive them. But as
Mhm.
long as you're closed off, like you said, on airplane mode, it can't get through. You're
Mhm.
your own worst enemy until you open up, and then you can receive it. So the
Mhm.
shadow work helped you get there,
Yep.
which
Yeah. And there's
awesome.
system, and I can talk about the third number 13 is very important in my 13 rungs because it is the number that is for at least here in America. I don't know how it is, but where it's considered unlucky, and to the point where there's no 13th floor on any hotels. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's insane. And I tracked this back, and apparently it's kind of vague why we consider it to be Judas was considered the 13th person, and maybe it was that. No one really knows, but the fact is we think it's unlucky, and it's not. It's actually associated with the divine and will bring good luck and prosperity to those who embrace it. So 13 is very important in that it's about deconstructing some false beliefs, and it's a reminder that maybe not everything we think is true really is. So it's about asking yourself these things. And there are rungs because, I've been through, the AA program and stuff, and it's done some good. But it's kind of it's a little bit, it's disguised Christianity a little bit. And there's some issues I have with it in that, there's separate powerless people away from God. And I don't agree with any of that. I think we're all, reflections of the divine and just little tiny pieces of that same big hologram. Everything is just one. So there's some stuff I disagree with it, but I like the steps. And I saw, it really helps some people. So I kind of thought about steps. I had to organize. So that's when it kind of came to me that source kind of spoke was like 13 rungs. So instead, moving forward is good, but moving up is better because a bird, that's where the kind of rungs came in.
Hmm. And you mentioned number 13. The name of the book is Sorcery 101, spelled Sourcery. So it's about source, like we said. Um, 13 rungs to a higher elevation of consciousness. And then, so that's the 13 that you're talking about with your 13 rungs. But then you also use the number 13 with the Sorcerer's Creed, which is also talked
Hmm.
about in there. Um,
Yep.
so clearly that does matter. Do you want to talk about what the rungs are? I would never ask anybody to give away the secret sauce,
Oh,
of the book
no.
or anything. But, I didn't know if you want to go into that or maybe the Sorcerer's Creed first, whatever you think. Maybe you give a few examples if you don't want to give them all away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, oh, no, no. It takes some depth into them to like really understand what they are. So just naming them off and talking about it is no problem. It's so there's shadow work, a call for inaction, surrender to serenity, health is wealth, emotional alchemy, comfort in discomfort, what is it? Attention to intention, goats over sheep, instinct versus intuition. Um, then there's the chakra life and assist leader. So they're all in there. They kind of came in an order, but not like a strict order, unlike the 12 steps where it has to be worked in order.
Right.
There's an order to them, but it's a loose order. I don't like strictness. Um, but yeah, there's several in there. Emotional alchemy is a big one I use a lot. And, surrender to serenity is before it. Surrender to serenity is about understanding the human condition and human beings better, which helps with emotional alchemy, which is, alchemy back in the day. It's the transformation of base metals into gold. So letter brass into gold by using some magic process, which real sorcerers can do apparently. But, emotional alchemy, you can take something like your trauma and, once you detach the emotional charge from that memory, your trauma is now alchemized into wisdom and can be used to your advantage. The key is to be able to discharge that emotional from the memory, and it can be traumatized or alchemized into wisdom.
Hmm.
Things like, fear can be, you know, if you're living in fear of something or living in being fear of yourself, or what would it feel like if you got through that? It can kind of be trauma. It can be alchemized. It can be, a judgment and these kind of negative emotions we feel towards each other. Can Curiosity can replace those, someone you're judging, or even someone you're jealous of, or curiosity. There's this big that book out, but um it's it and that's good, where you're kind of saying just let them, like that's much better than being controlling and attached to other people and what they're doing. But I say take it a step further, study them, instead of let them study them. It creates, you're not just what makes that, kind of let them thing good and bad is that you're disconnecting yourself from that person. So, which again is better than being controlling and wanted, this and that. But you can alchemize that, judgment to, fear of other people. It could be, um, you know, uh, scared, jealous of another person. Those all can be, the energy is already there. You might as well alchemize it into something and start studying people more than judging or being afraid or being jealous, or study them. So, that's one I really one. There's several in there. Is there any that popped out to you? I mean,
I mean, the emotional alchemy was the first one that I heard,
mm,
like that made me go, wait a minute, what? Because the other ones really seem to make a little bit of sense. I've had the opportunity to read some of these, so I have some context, but they all seem to be setting you up to be able to deal with different types of trauma and things that have happened to you in the past. I mean, does that sound accurate?
yeah, yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's what I've kind of gone through, and it's my own kind of journey that has come to this. And so what are you asking again? Like,
Oh, just the steps, sort of the purpose behind the steps as you read through them, and you're like, what are you really trying to do here? It seems like they're tailored towards helping people recover from a traumatic experience, from
Mhm.
emotional things they've been through, possibly addictions, stuff like that. And so, because I am familiar with the 12 steps and I know what that's for, it's different in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
This seems almost like a 12 steps 2.0, where it seems like it's more enlightened and much more under your control,
Mhm.
where you have more of a say in how this is going, but it also seems more intentional than the
Mhm.
original 12 steps as I've read through this. And so again, this is just, my thinking and my background, coming forward. But it seems as though it's designed to help people who have been through, those things, trauma, emotional crisis,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Um, at least on its surface.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and the whole point of it is to stop with this symptom thing, like the focus on the symptom, like drug and alcohol, use, an overuse of our phone can be just as destructive as drugs and alcohol. So, and that's everyone. Like there's so many people. I go to the gym and there's people, and it's guys and girls. Don't give me the girl thing. It's guys and girls, and they can't even get through they can't even get through a set they can't, they're sitting on the leg extension thing, and they do a set of phone. It's out of control with some people. I mean, out of control. And that can be just as destructive as drugs and alcohol. So the thing is the focus on the solution and not the symptoms. It's, the Western medicine again, like if it would be a good example would be like if 100 people went to have lunch once a month and 90 people got violently ill, the Western medicine would be like dole out anti-nausea pills to those 90 people instead of, going to check on the quality of the food, which is that's the issue. That's the core issue. So, and there is I don't want to say, the medical is both help the medical community is both helpful and destructive. It is that gray zone. And it can be destructive in that, they want to a cured individual lines no one's pockets. Let's be honest. Like, it's that's just the way it is with some people. I don't like to talk bad about it. It is bad, but it's also good. And you have to, be able to discern which is which. And so this is about curing the issue, the curing the symptom, and getting rid the symptoms kind of fall away. Like that not using drugs and alcohol has been a fantastic side effect of, you know, me creating this and going through these rungs and healing myself, and a focus on thriving as well. You kind of mentioned the 12 steps. The 12 steps is only focused on sobriety. It doesn't, there's nothing on thriving or creating a new life. Or
Right.
that's what happened with me when I was sober for 6 years, and I drank again because it was like it just stopped. It just was like, well, you're sober. Okay, so I'm sober. So now what? Like, what do I do now? Like, so, and that's what this kind of, it's taking this and, taking it a step further. I think, Bill Wilson, who is the AA, the creator of kind of the 12 steps and everything. And, in 1920s America, if you wanted to be spiritual, you had one choice, and that was Christianity. That the whole, New Age movement was 40 years away. Buddhism was still in the East. Jewish people were Jewish, Muslims were Muslims. That was it. And I think if he were around today, he would create something more like this, where it's like truly inclusive and without, dealing with any of the, kind of Bible stuff, because again, the Bible, again, there's truth and divine wisdom in that thing, and there's a bunch of lies and bullshit. And it's, I like to compare going into the Bible as like a cave, because it can be dark and scary, but there are gems to be found in this cave. And, a sorcerer enters the Bible in the right state of mind, and will pocket the gems and leave the garbage. A zealot goes into the Bible and just takes everything, and is weighed down by all the useless rocks and dirt. But you can go in and just pick out the gems, and you have to be in the right energy, because it's a very powerful book. But this is why sorcery kind of moves away and, from that whole thing. And I think I think it will. A lot of people, and I've seen people in AA too that, kind of feel the religious overtones, and they're already religiously, traumatized, and they'll be turned off immediately and walk out of a meeting and say this isn't for me. And basically, and society's like, well, you're saying healing's not for you. Well, there's other options.
So the Sorcerer's Creed then, is that the method that you go through? I mean, what's the difference between the creed and the actual rungs?
Yeah, the rungs are kind of what I get into. Like, I don't have the creed memorized, certainly. But the rungs are kind of the names and get into the depth. The creed is more just a set of principles. I can certainly read them if you want me to. It's not too long. It's up to you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you want to give
Um,
everybody an idea what we're talking about. So I was curious what
yeah,
the difference
yeah.
was. So yeah.
Yeah. So the rungs, I kind of went over the rungs, and
Mhm.
there's some work to do on these. These are just basic principles that I felt would fall in line, and there's 13 of them, of course. So one, I understand my focus is the energetic cord that connects and charges me. Every day, I have the choice to plug into the illusion or plug into the source. Two, I will receive my body. My body will be mine for the entire period I am here, so I will take care of it. Three, I pledge to seek out knowledge. I am enrolled in a full-time school called Life. Each day in school, I will take advantage and learn something new. Four, I understand there are no failures, just lessons. Growth is a process of experimentation. The failed experiments are as much a part of the process, the experiment that ultimately works.
Hmm.
Five, I understand that lesson learning never ends. A lesson will be presented to me in various forms and will be repeated until I learn it. I know the key to my success will be to go from lesson to lesson without losing my enthusiasm. Six, I understand that my reality happens through me, not to me. Therefore, I will remain vigilant in how I'm viewing myself and the world around me. Seven, I am aware that there is no better than here. When my there has become a here, I will simply obtain another there. Eight, I will honor the golden rule and love others how I wish to be loved. Nine, I understand we are one, so I will see others as mirrors into my soul. I know I cannot love or hate something about another person unless it reflects something I love or hate about myself. 10, I understand I am a biological computer. If I am not regularly questioning my thoughts and feelings before they become actions, I have been relegated to an organic robot. 11, I understand that I have the free will to choose my destiny. I have all the tools and resources I need, and what I do with them is up to me. 12, I know the answers to all of life's puzzles are inside me, and stillness is the key to that vault. All I need to do is pause, listen, and trust. And 13 might be my favorite one. Lastly, I pledge to approach every endeavor and obstacle I encounter with the confidence of a 5-year-old wearing a Superman cape.
I do love the last one. I remember reading that one because that was also so vivid, and
Yeah.
I've heard this something similar with like a Batman suit or something, but the kid in the Superman cape believes he's Superman and
Mhm.
absolutely nothing can stop him no matter what in his own
Mhm.
mind. And you allude to that a little bit, in terms of the way that you see the world and the way that you see yourself. So, your mindset plays a huge role in this whole thing. And your positive self-talk and these types of things, which I also noticed. And then the one that I wanted to ask you about was you can choose to plug into the illusion, or you can choose to plug into the source. That reminds me a little bit of like a red pill, blue pill type of thing.
Mhm.
So is that kind of what I'm hearing there? I mean, you can see the world how you want to see it.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. That's one of the rungs that I get into simulation theory. I give the best argument I've ever heard for this being a simulation. It's the best way to kind of explain it. This is not the end, whether you consider this a dream or whatever you might, there's been lots of, ways to metaphors of like what this life is. But if you think about a simulation, like a flight simulator, like a pilot gets into a flight simulator for a given purpose that is in a non-consequential atmosphere, the consequences stay within the game to practice something that you will use in the real world. Well, this is what this is, but our thing is not flying a plane, it's love. Love is the one thing that transcends space and time, and it is both what we will leave here and take with us. So it is the one thing we're supposed to be getting better at because it will transfer over to the other side and will stay here. So this is a big simulation for, to practice love. That's what it is. And, that takes a lot for someone that struggled even saying that word, for so long. I mean, I couldn't say it because it just wasn't said around my household. And it's very strange for someone to grow up in a completely loveless atmosphere to be one of the biggest advocates for spreading love. But that's what it's turned into. And there is an illusionary nature to this reality. Everything is as atoms, and an atom is 99.99999 empty space. Everything around you isn't actually here. Like it's a trick of the mind, and it's a trick of light and sound. And technically, if you think about it scientifically, that my hand is made of atoms, this wall is made of atoms. Why can't my hand go through this wall? Like there's no explanation for that. It doesn't make any sense. So it's just this illusionary nature to things that it's very important to understand. I don't, because it can become it like, well, it's a simulation, we'll screw it. Like it doesn't matter. That's not what it is. Like that's I don't want people to get the screw it's because it's not that at all. This life is really important. It's really important, but it's just something that just helped me so much is realizing that, like, because the little things in life, I like to consider myself the sky, and the things that I was worried about before was just passing weather, because they don't really matter. They don't really matter at all. Like what truly matters is love, is practicing love, and that's self-love, that's giving love to others, that's giving love to nature, to animals, that it is practicing love in every moment. And anything that isn't practicing love doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that mindset has exponentially helped me heal and thrive.
Hmm. Um, wow. Okay. So, I mean, I've heard it said that we all try to become the thing that we needed, or create the thing that we once needed. Is that is that the purpose in creating this? Is it because it's what you needed when you were younger, when you were dealing with all of those, traumas and things like that you were trying to overcome? Did you need this?
Yeah, I mean, I would not trade any of my background for anything because it has made me who I am. And once you disconnect the emotional charge with the memory, it now is wisdom. So, I wisdom a lot, knowledge comes from books, but wisdom is sourced, and it's tapping into that really has just helped me tremendously. And yeah, it's because it's what I've been through, and what's so fun is when I tapped into this. So I grew up in this emotional void of it. But so what the TV was not a babysitter, but the TV was my parent. So like I have memorized movies of the 90s and the 2000s, and like Saturday Night Live and the comedians of that time period, and like they're memorized in my subconscious. So when this field tapped into me that gave me this inspiration to write this book, it filtered through my subconscious, my humor, and my experiences. So I believe that there's a lot of fun riddles that are answered in the nooks and crannies of pop culture, and it's fun to go find those. And it's been a lot of fun, like with this realization, and then remembering something from, pop culture or movies or TVs, and being able to use that as, a parable metaphor type thing. Um, but yeah, I had to go through what I had to go through to get on the other side, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Anything.
Yeah. I love that. This is a fairly intricate system that you've put together. This isn't, it doesn't strike me as you sat down one day, poured yourself a scotch or something and just said, "Hey, here we go. I'm going to write this book." It almost seems to me like you've been putting it together for a while in pieces, and maybe it all came together for you. Is that close?
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was definitely pieced together. The final kind of thing came, the final, like like what I was going to call it, the 13 rungs and all that. That came to me finalized in Sedona. I was living up there for a year. It's very spiritual mecca here in Arizona. But after these things happened to me in adulthood with my mother and the child and the dog and all that stuff. So
Mm.
after all that ended, I moved to Sedona because it was just a trauma response. I got to get out of Phoenix. So I moved to Sedona for a year, and that's, I placed my intentions when I got up there to one of the vortexes, Bell Rock, and placed it out. It was like, all right, I need to, like my life is not going well right now, and I need to know what to do with this, and I want things to get better, and I need direction. And I placed my attention, and throughout a couple months, and then on a hike one day, it was just boom, like because all this stuff was already kind of in there, and it was circulating, and it was like, what do I do? How do I do this? Because it was all in there and kind of coming to me, and that's when it's like, all right, this needs organization, so we're gonna, take some inspiration steps. We're gonna do rungs, and we're gonna organize it and get it together. And so yeah, so that's yeah, I was Sedona's has a very special place in my heart now.
Wow. So who did you write this for then?
Oh, me. That's easy.
Okay.
It was straight up written for me. And I was at a time in my life like I was now healing the last couple years. I've really been doing better about my healing and like and truly setting that emotional bone. And a lot of that has to do with cutting out vices and things like that. And so I've been truly setting that emotional bone. And it's crossing that river change, that undercurrent of discomfort is very strong. Because your body is programmed and you're rewiring your mind, and it wants to bring you back to what's familiar. It wants to constantly bring you back to what's familiar, because whether good or bad, we will always gravitate towards what's familiar. That's what happens in, destructive relationships and stuff, and people pick the same partners, and it's because we always gravitate towards, even if it's not good for us, we just want what's familiar. So, but yeah, it was written for me while it's very meta. So it's like I'm healing and writing about healing. And then after it all came together, it was like, holy shit, this can really help a lot of people. Like this can really like this is if someone gave this to me when I was 20, I wouldn't have, 20 years of just struggle and pain. And like it's just this is the book that if I was given when I was 20, I'd be in a mansion and I'd be super happy, and like this is it. So, it is my manifestation, and it's about tuning into a station. It's mind heart coherence, and it's that once you get the mind and the heart in line, something happens where you're sending out, it's like a beacon, and you're sending out this beacon to the universe, and you've tuned into your manifestation. You get a clear intention and an elevated emotion. And when those things come together, like it's just boom, like magic. And you're sending out this signal to the universe. And so there's a lot of things that you can't do that are out of control. So the universe will conspire and do those things. And then you're living in this energy of your manifestation. You're now living, so you're going to act and do as that person as opposed to the old person, which is what it takes for change. So there's two things happening, and my worlds haven't quite merged yet, but they're merging. The book is very new. This is all like within a month and all this stuff, and so it's, like there's two worlds that are coming together, and then once these two worlds collide, now you're waking up in your dream. Now you're waking up in a dream. So that is very exciting to me and what gets me going every day.
So the book itself is educational, of course, teaching people about these different aspects and about source energy in the first place. But even the two things that you read, the rungs and the Sorcerer's Creed, seems as though you're forming an action plan and actual steps people can take to start turning their lives around.
Yep, it is a call for inaction. It's
Okay, okay.
that's the second wrong. And that's just about meditation, right? Like it's just a call to, and that's what people need most, I think, is a call for inaction, because people are, and that's where it starts, is like, all right, let's get go. Well, no, let's stop for a minute. Well, the problem is everyone's go, 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 like action, action, action. Let's just stop and start letting source speak to you, and then guiding and coming up with a plan that way. But it is, yeah, it is certainly a guide, a map. It is definitely. something that's the main thing is just, there's something called the Maharishi effect where, 1% can truly change the entire makeup of an organism. And the best example for the diet soda is 99% water. Chimpanzees are 99% human. So 1% can completely change the structure of the organism. And that's what I'm after is 1%. I'm not after everybody because that's not reasonable, but just 1% can completely change the structure of the organism. And that's what I'd like to see.
I like that. I love your approach. I mean, it's certainly user friendly, and I think it's got a very broad appeal because I've never, I have a lot of guests on. I do a lot of reading. I do my best to try and research topics as much as I can, but I've never come across a single book that had references to Harry Potter, Star Wars, Leonardo da Vinci, Keith Richards, and Michael Scott from The Office. I
Yeah,
mean,
and that's only the beginning. That's just the beginning.
that's just the
That's
first
just the
15
beginning.
pages.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you,
yeah. No, it is, and that's what I
you
mean.
hit the
Like
spectrum.
it is that ancient wisdom that's been around for forever, but it's now it's made through me. So I wrote a book that, I tried to focus on making people either laugh, think, or feel the entire way through. And this has to keep the attention of Generation TikTok, which is the shattered concentration of Generation TikTok. So people that still read and they've got to be out there. I'm recording the audio right now, which is going to be a lot of fun because I get to do voices and my personality is in there a lot. So that'll be out probably within the next month. So, and there's no excuse for that because you can't read a book while you're driving your car, but you can listen. So I'm getting that out there because now I know there's no excuse, and so it's yeah, it's exciting and it's fun for sure.
I like that. In terms of keeping attention and keeping things fresh, hitting the scattered attention span, you've been described as a little bit Deepak and a little bit Tupac. Anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, I mean that's the perfect explanation of me. And I believe we all have that to us. There's the side, and that is that shadow. There's the shadow, and then there's the divine. And that, that kind of came to me one day when I was just thinking of, I don't know what happened that I was thinking about that. And I said their names together and was like, oh, because they're on, kind of opposite sides of the spectrum. And that is that, and we all have that, whether you agree with it or not, there is a shadow aspect to us that is the reactionary, unpleasant nature, and there is the divine side of us. And no human is good or bad. There is just a bunch of humans out there making decisions of who they want to be. And no one is truly good or bad. There is a divine portion and the shadow in every single person. And so that is a little bit Deepak and a little bit Tupac.
I like it. I like it. I think it's accurate just from getting to know you a little bit here. I can understand where it all came from. So, um, the book's available on a website or is it on Amazon? How do people get the book?
Yes, so yeah, the book is on Amazon. Like I said, there'll be the audio soon, probably within the next month. If you just spell it sorcery with a U, that's in there. If you type in the full Sorcery 101, it brings you to a book. It autocorrects it and brings you to a book that's apparently about becoming a better wizard. So, I mean, you could check that one out too, but that's different than mine. Or you could just do Justin L. Shaw search for Amazon. I'm trying to get him to, but it's a pain. So just Sourcery with a U or Justin L. Shaw. You can search Amazon, it'll come up. And then yeah, so I've been off social media for 4 years now. That happened kind of in my awakening, and I just deleted all of it. And so last week I just started Instagram again. So I want to. I'm not even letting family and friends know because I don't want all that. But if you're watching this, you're kind of my kind of people. You follow me, I'll follow you. You're my people. So I'm keeping the Instagram to just like fun podcast people that follow me, and I'll follow them back because I don't. My fans and family are good people, but there's just some things that I don't vibe with anymore, and that's the whole
Okay.
reason I got off social media. So I'm doing it different this time.
Do you want to tell
And it's
everybody
oh
what?
yeah, yeah, it's Sorcerer 101. It's our sorcery. Wait, Sourcerer underscore 13 with a U. So Sourcerer underscore 13. So Sorcerer underscore 13 on Instagram. That's the only one I have right now.
Okay, sorcery with a U underscore 13. That's your call sign on Instagram.
Sorcerer. Sorcerer. Yeah.
Oh, not sorcery,
Sorcerer.
sorcerer.
Yeah. Yeah, the title of the book is Sourcery, but Sourcerer, Sourcerer, yeah,
Got it.
underscore 13.
Okay. Do you have a link to the book that you want to email me, and I'll make sure it's in the show
Yeah,
notes? If
yep,
you do
yep, I
that,
can do
that'll
that for sure.
eliminate a lot of
That'll,
the
yep, yep,
trying to
a
type it in
lot.
and stuff.
Yep,
But
I know.
send that to me. So, folks, that will be in the show notes. So make sure you click on that link. Go check out the book for sure. The I mean, just wow with all of this. Let me throw it back to you here real quick, just in the interest of time and whatnot. Is there anything that I haven't asked you yet, about this book? I'm sure there's a whole lot more to the book that we haven't covered, but is there anything that I haven't asked you yet, or is there anything that we've talked about that you want to make sure you drive home, or maybe you leave behind something you want to make sure that our audience hears from you? Let me give you the floor for a few minutes.
Yeah, so there's we could go on for days and talk about, and this is kind of my flow and what I enjoy talking. I hope to, like this is hopefully the seed that plants the career tree, and I'd love to do kind of mystical comedy of mixing the two together and kind of, maybe stand-up philosophy kind of stuff where because I am not going to work in a comedy club because I don't want to just make people laugh, and but I also want to work that in. And so I hope to be able to, as I kind of said earlier, is, from dope dealer to hope dealer. I was a lousy dope dealer, but I'm a much better hope dealer. So yeah, I did all my drugs. Like that's the problem. I made a lousy drug dealer because I did everything. I didn't make a dime. So I'm a much better hope dealer. But I think the main thing I like to say and leave with people is that, the world may be against you, but the universe is for you. And that's all that matters.
Wow. I like that. All right.
Um,
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Justin L. Shaw, sir, thank you for coming on here, doing all this, telling everybody about the book, going into all these different ideas. And frankly, thank you for creating something that I think is going to help a whole lot of people. There's not enough of this out there to help other folks. And I think you've given everybody a tool, to really help them find their way.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I can't wait to see where this leads. This is the very beginning. So, like let's see, let's go.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on here for the very beginning. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, folks, Justin L. Shaw, author, Sorcery 101, 13 Rungs to a higher elevation of consciousness. It's rungs, not rings.
Rungs,
Rungs.
yeah.
Okay, to
Latin.
a higher elevation of consciousness. Look it up, check it out. The link will be in the show notes. Folks, the reason that we do this, the reason that we bring powerful men like this on the program, we talk about very popular and powerful topics like this one, is because there's different ways to look at things. And if you're trying to fix things in your life, if you're trying to overcome some of your obstacles and what you're doing right now isn't working, what have you got to lose? Try something that's a little bit different. Open yourself up to try something new. See if you can let some of this light in and look around, see what you see, because you are worth it and you do have value. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.